The Milky Way galaxy, an ocean of stars and systems longing for life to flourish and expand, exploring every corner of creation. In the Milky Way, earliest records speak of an unfathomably ancient race, the Precursors. These were godlike beings that are believed to be responsible for the very creation of the life in the galaxy itself. For reasons unknown, they departed. They did, however, leave behind faint traces of their existence across various worlds in the galaxy. This story, however, isn't about the Precursors. It's about a race they instead created. A race that even though the Precursors themselves deemed unworthy, they would ascend and take upon themselves the mantle of responsibility. Welcome back to the channel, guys. I'm Vault Zero, and today we're going to make a deep dive look at the most influential, interesting, and eclipsed only by the Precursors themselves, the most powerful species in the Halo franchise. The Precursors' exodus of the Milky Way system had all been but forgotten by most species. The Forerunners, however, at this point in time, had achieved extraordinary feats all on their own, without the guidance of their gods. They created interstellar travel through a new dimension called flip space. They had even mastered the ability to create artificial worlds. These created worlds were both unimaginably beautiful as well as massive. The Forerunners' way of life itself revolved around an ancient philosophy passed down to them from the Precursors. This was become known as the mantle of responsibility. They believed that the galaxy, and by extension, all the life forms inhabiting it, must be protected by the most advanced sentient species. Civilizations that bore the mantle will be responsible for governing and caring for all life in the galaxy. But such power would blind the Forerunners, filling them with arrogance. The pride that blinded the Forerunners would not go unchecked. Soon their gods would return to judge them. They did not approve of the Forerunners, nor did they approve their hasty claim to the mantle. Secretly, the Precursors planned to erase the Forerunners from existence, strip the mantle from them, and gift it to another species that they did deem worthy. A just sentence for the crime of hubris. The Forerunners would embark on a fortuitous expedition to the Greater Magellic Cloud, a neighboring galaxy, also known as Path Chthona. It was here that by pure chance they would encounter their creators, and learn of their harrowing fate, of how they were viewed by the Precursors. Desperate and determined not to be erased from the echoes of time, Forerunner leadership gathered their forces and took a preemptive strike at the Precursors. The conflict would see the Forerunners launch the largest military campaign ever witnessed. With this, only a small fraction of their soldiers would return, and the outcome of this enormous war would largely be kept secret for millennia. They would erase the creators from the memory of the Milky Way and all of its inhabitants. Despite being victorious and being the unquestioned heir to the mantle, they had not seen the last of the Precursors. Their makers had left something behind, something capable of instilling destruction into the entire galaxy, a creature known as the Primordial. Meanwhile, another race created by the Precursors, the ancient humans, would unfortunately recover this creature on a distant moon in the Milky Way. Alive. However, it was in a state of deep hibernation. Unbeknownst to humanity, the creature they had recovered was the last of the Precursors. It had been through a state of forced evolution and mutations in order to survive the vast passage of time. It was perfectly suited to exact its horrid revenge on those who had destroyed its kind. Following the exterminations of the gods of the Milky Way, the Forerunners would go on to dominate the galaxy for millions of years. This would lead them to widen the gap significantly between themselves and even the most advanced species in the galaxy when it came to technological superiority. Their galaxy-spanning rule and unmatched power would eventually clash with ancient humans when an ancient enemy would emerge from the edges of the darkness surrounding the Milky Way. The Forerunner Empire was known as Eucemene. At the height of its power, it was impossibly large, spanning across 3 million habitable worlds. Serving as the centerpiece to the empire and as its capital was the immense and majestic artificial world known as Mithrilion. At the center of the Forerunners' culture was the Domain, a massive immaterial database in which all history, knowledge, and even life experience were stored. Presumed to be a creation by the Precursors and seized by the Forerunners during their violent campaign against the creators, in and itself is a mystery. The Forerunner society was divided into a variety of caste, or rates. These were used to define the citizen's role in civilization. A combination of genetic engineering and biochemical manipulation gives each rate their own distinctive appearance. Promotion will often be accompanied by physical mutation. Now we will take a look at some of the various rates that form the entire Forerunner society, starting with the lowest ranking rates up to the elite of Forerunner culture. Manipulars. These are adolescent Forerunners and typically not associated with any particular rate. However, as they age, they will be sorted into their respective rates. These are typically in accordance with their parents' rates. For example, Born Stellar makes eternal, lasting, and is expected to become a builder, like his father. Second to that is the Engineers. These are the lowest ranked rates in the Empire, and the only rate with no representation in Capital Court. They are responsible for maintaining the structures and the machinery of the Eucemene. Warrior Servants. Despite originally being the highest ranking members of the Eucemene Empire, they are now the second to lowest rate in Forerunner civilization. They make up the Forerunner military and are responsible for operating the extremely formidable battleships. They are the key to the crucial victory in the conflict against ancient humans, also known as the Human Forerunner War. Prometheans are the highest and most evolved form of the warrior servant rate, the most elite of the Empire's combatants, and they are led by the Didact. Juridicals. Every society needs those who will create and enforce laws of their civilizations. The Juridicals are responsible for doing just that. They are charged with the judicial matters, including investigations and crimes, as well as judgment of criminals. The juridical rate is home to the catalog, also known as a collective of evidence-gathering agents. The head of juridicals is known as the master juridical. Running in conjunction is the interpreters. These are experts in the study and interpretation of the mantle. Crimes against the mantle are dealt judgment by the interpreters and are a capital offense. Life workers are a rate specializing in biology and medicine and the experimentation of various forms of life. The head of the rate is known as the life shaper, and the librarian is the most well-known life giver Forerunner to hold the title. She is single-handedly responsible for saving humanity from extinction. But that is a story for another time. The Miners. These are Forerunners that are also known as plasma jockeys, and they are experts in planetary and stellar engineering. They are responsible for gathering resources for construction projects. The Builders. The highest rate in all of the Eucemene Empire. They were responsible for the construction of everything in the Empire, from ships to weapons to megastructures, most notably the Halo Array. This position would grant them immense wealth and political power. Their political power would only grow after Master Builder Faber and his allies would gain control of the Eucemene Council for over 1,000 years. There have been several rates that have been forcibly merged into the Builder rate, and they are as follows. Historians. Not much is known about these Forerunners, however, I think it is fair to surmise that they are tasked with overseeing the domain and chronicling the Forerunners' history, as well as the history of the species that inhabit the Milky Way. Weavers. These are the storytellers and the keepers of folklore, assimilated into the Builders as they rose to power. It is said that the Weavers began telling stories since the time the Forerunners learned to speak in complete sentences. Next we have the Theoreticals, another relatively obscure rate that has been subsumed by the Builders regime. They have existed over 1,000,000 years before the Didact was sealed in his cryptum. After one of the Theoreticals named Boundless persisted in studying a certain star in the Spider Nebula of Path Chthona, despite Warrior's orders, she was eventually punished by the Juridicals and sealed into a faulty cryptum. This would ultimately cause her death. I believe the rate was originally responsible for the study of stars, space, and astrophysics. However, after Boundless got close to the truth behind the Precursors, they would be assimilated into the Builder's rate. Next, we have Speakers, a rate that has the innate ability to stir a crowd with their passion and elegance. Of course, we see why this would be essential for a rate such as the Builders to have it incorporated in. And finally, we have the Interpreters, which, as we discussed, they would interpret the meaning of the mental responsibility and its philosophy. The name itself, Forerunner, is deeply symbolic, representing their place in the universe left behind by the Precursors. They viewed themselves not as an eternal shepherd of the Milky Way, but instead as temporary stewards, who, when the time was right, would pass down the mantle to humanity. Hence why, after millions of years, they would grant the humanity the title of Reclaimers. They were like most creatures in the galaxy, bipedal in nature, towering over most other life forms, however. Their heights ranged from 6 feet 9 inches all the way up to 13 feet 7 inches, and weighing anywhere from 244 pounds to 489 pounds. This was, of course, dependent upon which rate the Forerunner belonged to. They would often alter their bodies through physical mutations to help better align with the rate that they had been assigned. Also, it is worth noting that the denizens of the Eucemene Empire had a heavy reliance upon their advanced body assistant armor. This was an ingenious piece of technology that did much more than just defend the wearer. It also served to bolster the quality of life, both mentally as well as physically. With built-in, unyielding life support and medical devices constructed into the very armor, this would promise an almost endless lifespan. These suits were essential in fighting out the aging process so that the Forerunners could continue to innovate and deepen their legacy throughout the galaxy. In their manipular form, the Forerunners were tall, very lean, and covered in patches of fur. They had pink or alabaster patches on the apex of their heads, down their necks, their shoulders, and onto the back of their hands. It is also worth noting that in terms of facial structures, they bore a striking resemblance to that of humans. Really quick, if you guys are enjoying the episode and want to help support me, then feel free to leave a like and a comment. Also, smash that sub button so you can stay up to date on all the episodic lore content and never have to miss any of those really cool lore episodes. If you guys want to help the channel financially, definitely check out my Patreon page that I'll have pinned in the comments. I have set up some pretty neat perks, such as early access to every episode, member shoutouts, member-only episodes once a month, and even have access to my Discord where we can group up and play some Halo Infinite together. Also, if you guys are some of my members that also like to play Fallout 76, because I also cover that content, I have a custom world set up where I can invite you to it and we can play that together. I also, one last thing, have a free tier that I highly encourage you guys to join, and by joining it, you'll just get access to a chat room where we can discuss all things Halo and Fallout 76. As time marched on and they began to evolve, they lost the ability to form expressions like smile with such ease. Culturally, doing so became an act of disrespect. They lacked noses like humans, but instead had small nostril slits. Despite direct genetic ties being unsubstantiated, now some obsolete Forerunner subdivisions do seemingly confirm that human and Forerunner do indeed share a genetic blueprint. This is also corroborated by ancient Precursor accounts, and this is because they were the gods themselves that seeded the universe with life. In addition, another quality that the Forerunners shared in common with that of humanity was their sexual dimorphism, with the males appearing larger and more muscular in nature than that of the females of the species. Strangely enough, as they progressed through their evolution, it is the males that began to lose the resemblance to that of humans. Their skin can take on a variety of colors, from pink to blue and even black. They have 6 fingers, 2 of which are opposable thumbs. and there have even been reports of life workers who have had staggering seven figures. The librarian, for reasons unknown, however, only boasted 5 fingers on each hand. The whole science they pioneered was truly astounding. It allows them near immortality if that is what they choose. Their armor can withstand almost all of the most extreme conditions, including heavy radiation and most grievous of wounds. However, the armor itself was not without its limits. The legendary warrior servant known as Bitterness of the Vanquished chose to forsake basic remedies. She instead would rely on her armor to guide her senses, despite her blindness. A truly astounding feature of the armor was its miraculous ability to almost entirely eliminate the need for sleep. However, despite the Forerunners' mastery of machinery and technology, sleep was one of the few things they could not completely defeat. In rare occasions, the wearer would experience vivid waking nightmares and hallucinations if they became too sleep-deprived. For this reason, most Forerunners would still take the time to meditate and gather their strength. The armor would become the life of the Forerunner, particularly in the latter stages of evolution, in which the armor would not only augment the wearer's neural capabilities, but it would also maintain a conscious backup of the wearer's consciousness, a kind of cloud with the consciousness being uploaded. This in turn would empower the wearer to gain the ability of telepathy, allowing Forerunners to convey information silently. High-ranking members of the Eucemene were experts in multitasking, having conversations in the minds of multiple Forerunners at a single time. The Forerunners are a controversial topic among Halo fans because of their divisive origins. Bungie made it obvious that the Forerunners and humanity both shared a genetic blueprint, and that the Forerunners were in essence the precursor of the human race in the Milky Way galaxy. This is why the title of Reclaimer was put upon them in regards to the mantle. After all, how was one expected to reclaim something that they never had, in terms of humans? However, my opinion on the matter is that while yes, Bungie's Halo titles were superior, and no one is arguing that they're not, Halo Studios, formerly 343, has had the title in its hands for many years, and even though we may not agree with the retcon that they may have enacted upon the sacred mythos that is Halo, it is important to remember that even though Bungie is no longer once holding the pen, it doesn't mean that the story being told is bad. I, for one, thoroughly enjoy the direction that Halo Studios is taking the game, and excited to see what the future holds, especially considering the seemingly resurgent Halo Infinite. That's going to do it for me this time, guys. Be sure to sub for more Halo content. Be on the lookout for Episode 2 of the Forerunner Legacy, in which we will discuss the Forerunner Council, their weaponry, and the construction of the most powerful weapon, the Halo Array. Thanks for watching.